What I do want to do is I want to talk about a little bit to give folks some insight in terms of dementia. One of the concerns that we have when we see folks that have cognitive impairment may be whether you are a caregiver or you just have interactions with somebody with dementia. You have to start to understand what dementia is all about. While it is true that most dementias cause a loss of memory, initially for many dementias, that loss of memory is a short-term memory loss. So they may not remember what they had for breakfast this morning, but they can tell you what they had on the first date with their spouse of 60 years ago. It is a circumstance where they will tell you that they have to rush over to their mother's house when their mother's been dead for 20 years. But for them, the reality of their world is the reality that they have in their mind, not the reality that we all experience. And when I say that, what I mean, and let me do it through example. If I am caring for someone who has dementia, and they tell me I need to go out and see my mother, and I happen to be working with them, say over at Moorings Park Chateau, which is our nursing home. We have a unit over there called the Cypress Unit, and most folks that have cognitive impairment that are there long term are going to be on that unit. And if one of the residents over there says, I've got to go out and I've got to get in the car and visit my mother, one approach that I can take is I can say, oh, no, your mother's been dead for 20 years. If I do that, it is like telling my daughter that her mother's been dead for 20 years. She would know that that's not true. She saw her mother this morning before she went to school, and clearly I'm out of my mind. I'm holding her against her will wherever I am, if it happens to be at school, and she knows that that's wrong. And indeed, if someone was to tell her her mother wasn't alive, all she would know is that they were lying and that she's got to figure out a way to get out of here from this dangerous, terrible place. That is the same scenario for somebody who has dementia who thinks that they're going to go visit their mother. So the approach, whether you're a caregiver, a healthcare professional of any level, or just a casual observer, is not to say, in a rational fashion, no, your mother's not alive, she's been dead for 20 years. The responsibility that we have is to enter their realm of reality and give answers that are accepted in their reality. In other words, all right, well, they had to tow your car because it was parked in an illegal spot, but I've called the police and we've got it coming, so come on over here and we'll sit down, and as soon as it gets here, I'll get you. What do you mean they towed my car? I know, I can't believe it. And then you walk them over and you talk about how terrible it is that they would tow your car when it really wasn't parked in a bad spot. And as you distract them and you move them into another arena, and maybe you have the television going on and you start talking about the election, and they're asking you, how come Roosevelt's not in this one? You can have that discussion, and it totally distracts them from what you know is reality, and it is working within their own realm. Now, having said that, that's probably an oversimplified example, but it brings home the point. It also, however, lets you know that many caregivers are out there, and they have to deal with the same thing over and over again. These little bracelets that people are talking about, is it a good thing or a bad thing? If I'm in the hospital, or if I'm over in the chateau, or if I'm over in any other place where I'm dealing with folks with cognitive impairment, if I know that they're wearing this bracelet, a couple of things will help me out. One, I will know that every time I walk into that room, I have to introduce myself. If I don't, they have a stranger walking into their bedroom. You know how you would feel if a stranger walked into your bedroom. It would not be comforting. All right, some of you who look at some of those movie stars might think a different thing depending on who that stranger was, but the reality of it is generally it would not be comforting. And so, in this circumstance, if I see this, I know that this is an individual who has to have me introduce myself to them every time I walk into the room. and it will be a new experience for them. And I have to do it in such a fashion so that they're comfortable with me walking into the room. The other thing about this, in a hospital setting, in any type of an institutionalized setting, whether it be a nursing home, assisted living, anything else, if I want to change some aspect of care, I know that I need to contact whoever it is that is the guardian who is responsible for making healthcare decisions. Not, Mrs. Jones, do you want to go on the shopping trip that we're taking with the residents next week? Oh yes, that's something I want to do, and that would be very good for me to do that, and make sure I have my credit card. What we want to do is make sure that we ask the caregiver if it's okay to do that, and any other issues that are related to that. More importantly, if I'm going to adjust a medication, if I'm going to do a procedure, particularly an invasive procedure, I need to get permission from somebody who can truly evaluate the risks and benefits and make sure that that action is an appropriate action. These little things can help with that as long as we get the staff educated that that's what they're doing. So, are they a good idea? They are a good idea. Are they the only idea? Of course not. There are lots of things that we need to be able to identify things that show individuals have other healthcare providers, but they are helpful.